What's up, Avo? How you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
I am good, buddy. I'm good. I always like to start off with anytime I have a guest on that is actually like a friend. I always like to start there because I feel like the listeners, some people I have on and have no idea who they are when I meet them, or when I bring them on, and then some people I'm like, they're actually really good friends, and you and I have become really good friends over the last few months. So I just want to start there because I think people they can probably hear the conversation goes a little different direction, or they could even hear the cadence in my voice or the words that I use differently, just because when you're talking with a friend that you've talked to every single day versus someone that you bring in that you've never met, you just have a different style of conversation. But hey, I wanted to bring you on the show because man, if there's anyone that's earned their stripes in this business quickly, it's you. It's you. So I just wanted the listeners to hear somebody who's been in the industry for a short period of time and somebody who just like is consistently, putting deals together and daily putting like action in place to go get work, get more work, and keep your deals together. So let's start off, man, by just introduce yourself and why you got into real estate, when you got into real estate, and just tell us a little bit of that story, Avo.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited. Yeah, it's been really a fun journey getting up to this point, and it's been a couple years in the making. A little bit about kind of what started this train into real estate, right? What got my wheels turning was really three things I can think of. It wasn't just one single one, but the first one was in 2020, terrible time for a lot of things. But my wife and I bought our first house in 2020. And going through that process, I kind of felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I had never done it before. A lot of it was new with lending and dealing with every person and all the moving parts and pieces, right? So I kind of just felt like inferior about my own knowledge about this process. And I was like, if this is something I want to do in the future, as far as just buy a house, not even thinking about being a realtor, I need to know more about this process because I already recognized you can make a lot of money or you could lose a lot of money, right? So that was the first thing that kind of got my wheels spinning. The second was I saw how little our realtor did through that process, specifically because we bought a new build. It was really, really easy. They didn't have to show us a ton of homes. As you know, it was a super competitive market. So anytime we would see a house that we wanted to go see, it was gone before we could even get a showing scheduled. So with that being said, nothing against our realtor. He was great, but I saw his commission check and I was like, dang, that's a lot of money. I want a part of that pie. I was already working in sales, very money motivated. Commission checks are my favorite thing in the world. So that was a cool thing to see. And at the time, I was working for this tech startup. It was basically, we were like an owner's rep, right? So people would reach out to us. Typical average homeowners wanted to do their own construction projects, and they would basically hire our company to help manage them. So through that process, I kind of saw improving properties, renovations. We were dealing with architecture and permitting and zoning. So that was also somewhat involved in real estate. That also kind of got, piqued my interest. And the last thing was kind of seeing my wife. She's kind of been a big inspiration for me through this process. So she's been a hairstylist for many, many years. But in 2021, she kind of started this journey of becoming her own boss, right? Because previously she was a employee of the salon, giving up a large portion of her commission, and she transitioned into being her own boss in 1099. Long story short, she was working less and making a lot more. And I was like, wow, I need to do that for myself. I don't want to be a corporate employee forever. I was making good money, but it wasn't life changing money. So those three in combination kind of got me to say, hey, I should sign up and get my real estate license. At the time, I was just thinking of kind of dipping my toes in, getting my feet wet because I was very comfortable at my corporate job and I was well set up. I was in leadership. I had a good salary. I had a really good thing going, but I just wanted more, right? So I signed up for real estate school. I really dragged my feet through that because I was working full time. So it took me almost 10 months to do my 90 hours. I had to pay for like one or two extensions that hurt. But finally, I got my license. And the whole time I was going through the process of the schooling, my goal was get your license, do that on the side, work your full time job for another couple years, get to the point where you feel comfortable taking that leap because it was scary going from a good salary, good benefits, good income to nothing, right? So that's kind of what got me into real estate. And pretty quickly, once I got licensed, my plan changed. My plan was, like I said, to kind of slow roll it, but I quickly realized that I wasn't able to attend trainings that I was being invited to. I couldn't show my clients homes until after 5 p.m. And it was just not what I wanted. I knew I was going to get, kind of the half-assed results by giving it half of my effort or even less. So pretty quickly, after like a month or two of getting licensed, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to commit to this full time. I don't want to be stuck at my day job thinking about real estate. I want to be doing real estate every day. So almost immediately, I quit my full time job and just jumped in. And it was really scary, but it was the best decision I ever made.
And you quit your job without closing a transaction, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Just
I
all
had
in.
I had spent the first month of being licensed, working full time, and then I would get off work and I was just getting things set up. Right? I had to set up my PLLC, I had to set up my website, my branding. I had to just figure out what went into doing the job. And after about a month of doing that just on the side, I was like, I'm just going to quit my job, and it's going to be scary. It's going to be challenging. There's going to be some difficult times over the next couple months. But I knew that I had the work ethic. I knew I had the skill set, and I knew I had to just do it.
Yeah, so you're putting deals together pretty consistently right now. I mean, not only knowing you, but seeing like your social media. I mean, you're active, and I'm sure that other realtors would like to know how somebody who's just fresh in the business is already throwing down deals. What did that look like, man? Like, how did you just get into real estate and start already putting pendings together? What does your daily activities look like?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to preface what I'm about to say with something you say all the time, and that's massive action, right? If you're sitting around waiting for deals to come to you, I hate to say it, but they're not. They're not just going to fall in your lap. You really have to go and put yourself out there. Another thing you say is put yourself in opportunity's way, right? And if you're not putting yourself out there and really just trying to live the life of, hey, this is what I'm doing every single day, it's not going to come to you. So some things I did early on when I didn't have a lot of business, right, was I was just making videos. I was educating my friends and family. I have a decent following on social media, maybe like 1,000 friends on there. I grew up here, so I feel like having a network and family and friends here helps as well. But I started just posting online about what I was doing every day. It wasn't necessarily closing deals. Maybe I was out door knocking and I would just film a video like, hey, look what I'm doing, right? After doing that for so long, I realized that my friends and family were starting to respond to my social media content and be like, dude, you're killing it. You're absolutely on fire. And between you and I hadn't closed a single deal yet. So, really, perception is reality.
Yep.
And if you just put yourself out there and show people you're working hard, the universe will work good for you, So, not to say that's everything I was doing, but that was just the beginning.
Wasn't your first listing from Knocking Doors?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because I actually didn't know you, but followed you on Instagram. Like I didn't know you personally. And I remember seeing you that day. You posted Knocking Doors. And I was just thinking, like, man, that's an interesting route to pick. I never did that in the sense of like knocking doors to get business. I've knocked doors of like people who were late on their mortgages to like try to get like a short sale or something, like a very specific door, but not just like randomly knocking on people's doors looking for business. So when I saw that, I was like, That's interesting. And then it was like probably 2 months later, I met you. And then when you told me how you got your listing and you told me it was from knocking doors, I actually in my brain could connect. That's probably the most interesting thing, Avo, is how, there's a lot of people obviously that I follow on Instagram. And I clearly remembered the day you posted that you were knocking on doors. And because I like remember thinking like, dude, this guy's like you know what I mean? He's getting after it. Like there's no excuses to that guy's story. And so that was your first listing. A guy just called you back from knocking doors. Tell me a little bit more about that story.
Yeah, it was a fun one. At the time, it was in the spring. It was getting hot, but it wasn't 115 like it is right now. So
Okay.
knocking doors was a lot more fun. But basically, what I did was I printed a little note. It said something along the lines of like, "Hey, I'm working with a buyer and they want to buy a home in this neighborhood, but as you know, there's limited inventory. Just wondering if you've been thinking about selling, or maybe if you wouldn't be opposed to looking at an offer. If so, give me a call." And I printed that on a sheet of paper 6 times. I cut it up, stapled a business card to each one, and went and dropped them off in a neighborhood with nice homes, right? These homes on average are like 800K plus. I was just shooting a Hail Mary. I didn't know if anything would come of it, but I was willing to go do it, right? And I went and dropped off probably 300 notes and business cards on doorsteps in this neighborhood. And the very next day, I get a text. Hey, got your note. My wife and I are thinking about upgrading in the near future. Would love to chat. And I responded, tried to just get in person, right? I didn't want to go back and forth over text. I just went for the appointment. And he was really standoffish. He was like, hey, look, man, if you're just trying to list my home, like I'm not going to sell right now. I know what you're up to and this and that. So after like a couple days of going back and forth, and I told him like, hey, I'm not just trying to list your home. Like I genuinely have a buyer, want to help. He got me into his house just because I wanted to check it out and just meet him face to face, right? Start to build that rapport and relationship. So after about a week, he agreed to meet. I met up with him, super casual conversation, probably 10, 15 minutes. It wasn't even quite a listing appointment. It was just, here's what we have. I have a buyer, this and that. Left there, no listing. And for probably 3 to 4 months from there, I put him in my CRM. I was reaching out weekly, sending articles, sending things about the market, even set them up on a search because I learned what kind of home they were going to upgrade to in the future. Long story short, after 3 or 4 months of just keeping in touch, building that relationship, I was in the gym at like 7 a.m. one day and I got a text from him and he's like, hey, bad news, getting a divorce. I need to sell the house. Let's list it. I rushed home, put together that listing agreement and sent it over. I had it signed by like 8:30.
That's awesome, man. It's just so cool that you hear the words massive action and getting opportunities way, and that's almost exactly what it means. It's like get opportunities way. Like how else would one get business? So how does that so what's your I mean, you've closed quite a few more since then. So like how are you getting all your other business, man?
Yeah, really, it's a combination of things. I get asked this question a lot, and it's not just one thing. I feel like I'm doing a lot of things that sometimes get me nowhere, but if you do it consistently, you're gonna see success from it, right? My first listing came from knocking doors, dropping off business cards. I've closed 1 or 2 deals from calling PPC leads, right? I've closed a handful more from my sphere, my friends and family that have reached out from seeing me posting on social media. So it hasn't been just one single outlet. And I feel like that's important for anybody in this industry is you can't be so one-sided because everything works if you do it consistently enough. It's just a matter of putting in that work.
Yeah. So what do you do? Okay, so your network of people. I mean, it sounds as if like, door knocking, some pay per click, your network of people. What are you doing on a consistent basis for people to know that you're a realtor? I mean, I obviously see you on Instagram, but like is there something that you're doing like consistently or what's that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most consistent action I'm taking is actually working every day, right? It's putting yourself out there. Like I feel like my life now is real estate in a good way. But when I'm in the gym, I'm on the treadmill at 6 in the morning and I'm reading articles. I'm educating myself about the industry. I've really made it a point to just meet new people because opportunity is everywhere. And sometimes I approach a stranger at the gym. For years I've been going to the same gym, and you see the same people every day. And sometimes it's just a head nod, but never really had a conversation. And I've tried to just throw myself out there and meet one new person a day. And oftentimes we have a short conversation, it goes nowhere, but I've met a couple awesome people just from being proactive about saying good morning, and it sparks up a conversation, and now we're best friends, and I have them set up on an MLS search. So that, as far as just putting yourself out there, being really loud on social media, and like you say all the time, you got to have receipts, right? It's not always, hey, I'm closing this deal, I have this home under contract, but something as simple as, hey, look what I'm doing. I'm outdoor knocking, I'm cold calling, I'm hosting an open house. People see you working hard and want to be a part of that success.
Yeah, that's what I've been finding more and more on social media is I do have a lot of realtors that will reach out and ask questions on like, well, what do I post? And it to me, it's just like to me, it's more of a journal. Like it's just to me, it's like for me, I always, like I'm telling you, like I look at my stories more than anybody else looks at my stories. And not to sound like conceited or egotistical, it's like I want to keep up with my own stories. Like there are days where I'm like, I look at my stories and I'm like, ooh, like I didn't deserve any business, right? Like I look at them like, did I go on my walk in the morning? Did I go to the gym? Like, did I put up pending? Did I call any leads? And those days where you don't have any like receipts per se to post like a closing deal, it's like if you're trying to post a real estate post every single day and you don't have enough closings or pendings going down to do that, then it should be like the action that it takes to get to a pending, in my opinion. Like it's almost like just like the easiest system when people are like, what do I post on social? I'm like, if you just post your actions on what you were doing to try to get work, then you'll actually get work. And then you can start posting the closings, and then you'll start posting what you're doing to get more business. And then you start waking up and like you have 2 or 3 posts a day because you're just like, hey, just called 100 leads, got 2 appointments, or just pended this transaction, just sat this open house, just walked and knocked on these doors. But like your receipts can actually be the actions trying to get to that piece of business. And that's something that I noticed that you do um, very well. So when you meet somebody like new, what do you do for them to like establish that, like you're a realtor?
I don't try to make it about that. I just try to meet people. And sometimes it doesn't even come out that I'm a realtor, right? If I say good morning to somebody or approach someone and they're not as open as I am about just having a conversation, a lot of people want to, keep their head down and keep doing what they're doing. That's fine. The conversation never gets there. And it's not about, hey, I'm Avo, I'm a realtor. It's, hey, good morning, how are you? And just some people will be very open, and you have that same energy, and you just kind of naturally build that relationship, and it gets to that point of what do you do for work and this and that. But there's a lot of conversations that really don't make it that far, and that's okay. I'm not here to try to sell everybody, but if you can just build relationships, that's all it is.
So when you started putting people into your database or your CRM, like what are you doing now for those people? I mean, I understand social media is there, but like what are you doing? Are you doing any type of marketing for these people? Any mailers? How are you staying in front of now the people who know that you're a realtor?
Yeah, it's, a lot of different actions. And again, it's not just one thing. A lot I've learned from you. I'm very thankful for a lot that you've taught me of how to run a business like this. I make it a point to reach out to a few people each day. I send weekly emails to my sphere. I do every door direct in certain areas. I just started this new thing with Boomerang. Have you heard of that? It's
I
like
have.
the BOGO coupon things. I'm sending those out to my sphere. I post on social media religiously. I feel like if you don't know I'm a realtor, it's weird, right? So just doing a lot of things. But, going back to what you were saying before about posting those little things you're doing, I feel like that's important, especially in this industry, because unless you're Chris Bowers, you're not closing deals every day, right? And I feel like celebrating those small wins in between is really important for your own mindset, for your own happiness, because I'm not at the point where I'm putting a deal together every day. And if you're basing your happiness, success on closing deals, you're going to be pretty sad, right?
Yeah. Man, so what are you working on right now? Like what are you tinkering with? What systems are you working on? What's that
Yeah.
look like?
So up to this point, I feel like I've kind of got my day to day dialed in. Something that's kind of next on the horizon for me is I want to start my own PPC. A lot of our teammates do that and have a lot of success with it. I've already had success with it, working some leads that were provided to me. So I want to start doing that for myself and really just grow my own business organically, right? When I first got into the industry, coming from my background in sales and leadership, I was thinking kind of the old route of, oh, I want to become a successful realtor. I want to bring in agents under me. I want to start my own team. And I'm still excited about that. I still want to help other people grow in their career and be a mentor. But it's less about, I want to start my team and have this brand around my team. Now it's like I want to grow my real estate business, and after meeting you and being a part of this crew, seeing the success that's going around, really my ambitions in real estate have changed, and now I'm a lot more focused on growing my business for myself and my family as opposed to just starting a team and kind of taking a back seat in that.
What made you what made you come to that conclusion? I know you said maybe hanging around, the crew and what we talk about a lot, but what made you make that transition of like I want to build a traditional real estate team to like focusing more on your own?
Before I really got going in the industry, I didn't know a lot, right? And after putting together my own deals and seeing the work that goes into it, not to say there aren't people out there who are hungry and want that for themselves, but not everybody has that same ambition, right? And coming from my previous role as a sales manager and a sales trainer for 3+ years, one of my probably biggest frustrations was trying to instill that hard work and that hustle in somebody who just doesn't have it. And I hate to say that because that's what my job was, right? It was motivating them and inspiring them and pushing them to be their best. I have that. I know I wake up every day hungry and driven and motivated, but sadly, not everybody does. And trying to instill that in somebody who doesn't have it is draining. I know I have it. And if I put my effort towards growing my business for myself, I will 10x my business, my income, my wealth versus trying to do that for other people. Right.
Yeah, man, that's cool that you've come to that conclusion so quickly. I mean, it's just so many people in the industry do these like bring on agents, do like these 50-50 splits. And I mean, anybody who looks at a P&L long enough, profit and loss, it can get to a point where like it's actually draining from a company standpoint where you're like, whoa, like, you know what I mean? You got to think like revenue coming through the door and you're giving away 50% to a salesperson. And then there's still more back end logistics because once you have a team, you've got more internal overhead. You usually have like a transaction coordinator on staff or office employees. So it's like dollars come through your door and 50% off the top go to agent. Fine. But then like your 50% as the company owner then gets split up more and more because then you got to have office staff for those team members to make them happy. And you just can get in this cycle where like you can win like these productions awards and you can sell all these homes, but it's just like really did you keep as much of that as you could? So yeah, it's always a question that I ask people like are you like why are you bringing on team members? And if the answer is, which it is most of the time, is I want to make more money, I'm like let's talk. You know what I mean? Like if it
Yeah.
was to make more money, let's actually go down a different path of where like you can close the transactions yourself and
Mhm.
have leverage around you. Because most people will say like, oh, well, I want to make more money, and I'm like, that might not be the route to actually form like the traditional team. Or they'll say like, I want my free time back, and I'm like, that's actually not a way. It's like both the reasons I get are like, I want to get back more of my free, I want to get back more time, or I want to make more money, and I'm like, the traditional route of a team is usually not your path, and so that's why I mean, the showing partner model and all kinds of other things that we've did in our business, those were decided because it was the same two things. We wanted to make more money, but we wanted more time for ourselves. And so it went a little bit different route. So kind of cool that you saw that out the gate. You've only been doing real estate for a little while, but nice to hear you just say that out loud. Ava, when you say like you wake up just like motivated, what does that mean?
Yeah, I feel like that's a good question with a difficult answer, right? Because it probably means something different for everybody. And there are days where I wake up tired and I want to make excuses and not get up and go to the gym. But I've recognized kind of over the last 4 to 5 years where I've really put myself in this mode where I'm hungry and I wake up and exercise. Like, prior to this, I felt like, and I think this stemmed a little bit from, I'll go back a little bit, but to 2017, I actually got into a car accident. Okay. I screwed up my back. I was in bed for a couple of months. Prior to that, I was energetic. I was confident. I had a lot of things going for me. After this car accident and going through those injuries, I kind of got in this negative mindset. I haven't really struggled with anxiety or depression in my life before, but I did at that time. And I just felt like I wasn't the same person. I felt like my life was just changed forever, right? And it's scary. It's a scary position to be in. With that being said, I was already kind of a little overweight, right? Like we've been talking about, but I just got so comfortable that I wasn't doing much, right? And my wife, again, going back to her being a big inspiration, kind of nudged me and was like, "Hey, you're getting a little heavy, dude." So that kind of got my gears turning, right? I started to just push myself to get up off the couch and take my dog for a walk. And like that was difficult at the time. And after doing that for a little bit, I started to push myself to go to the gym. And I would make excuses and try to get out of there as fast as possible. Like, how can I do the bare minimum in 30 minutes and leave? Right. So it's been a constant progression over the last 4 to 5 years of just adding something new in my routine that's developed to my routine today. So to go back to your question, I feel like after getting my life back on track with fitness and exercise, I've gotten a lot of my confidence back. It has just led me to have an overall better life. I probably wouldn't have had the confidence to quit my job and do real estate if I wasn't in the mindset and position I was in, right? So to go back to my motivation, I went through this challenging period in my life for a little bit where I just felt like my life was like over in a way, right? It wasn't, but I just felt that way. And seeing how every facet of life has improved over the last 4 to 5 years just because I've pushed myself to do things that were uncomfortable, it's amazing to see. And I just wake up with this hunger every day. Like my wife looks at me like I'm crazy because I wake up at 5:30 a.m. and spring up out of bed and go straight to the gym. And she's like, "How do you do that?" Like almost every day, And I feel like it's just given me this newfound passion and excitement for life to just wake up and do as much as I can because I have these big goals and I'm not going to reach them if I'm not doing that.
When you talk about big goals like in real estate, do you have those written down? You don't have to say them on here, but like do you have those written down and do you have like a path to get there? Like is it broken down in something that you feel is manageable to obtain it?
I do have them written down. I feel like the path to get there is not as concise. So I'd actually love to pick your brain and sit down with you one day soon and talk about what that looks like. But I feel like I've always set big goals for myself, right? And my old boss used to say, if people aren't laughing at your goals, then they're not big enough, right? Like at our last company, we had this goal of having $1 million month for like 24 months, and we never hit it. But every month that was our goal, and every month we'd get closer and closer and closer to hitting that goal, right? So I feel like setting big, lofty goals is important. And if you're constantly hitting your goals, they're probably not big enough. So I try to kind of set the bar high. And even if I fail, I'm okay with that. But I know I'm going to get closer to achieving them if they're pretty lofty.
Yeah, I'm down to talk to you about that and and break those down for you. I mean, that's kind of what I love doing that. I think that what's cool about goals is it's almost always just math. Meaning, like if you wanted to be a certain weight by a certain time, to me, it's math. Like really, if you think about it, like it's adding up like your calories every single day. It's like math. If you wanted to make $1 million a year, it would be, well, how much do I got to make a month, and then how much do I got to make a week, and then that's math, right? And then it's, well, you should know like the conversions of, well, if this many leads come to the door, this is how many I close. So then the answer would be, well, how do I get that many leads to the door? That's math. If it was, I wanted to, read a book by a certain amount of time, that would be math. Like it really boggling. Like math was probably one of my, like, in school, I was like, oh my gosh. Like, do you remember those? Like, I think of it now and I'm like, oh, if they would have just put up something that I cared about, I might have actually like did it. But it was like, like I, in my head, I think now, like, if Chris wanted to make $1 million by this day and he only made this much per, like, remember those math problems and you were just like trying to figure it out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I don't care, like I don't even care. Therefore, I can't come up with an answer. Now I feel like almost everything that I'm doing is like one of those problems that like the math teacher put on the board. Like if Chris Bowers wants to get here by this day and he's doing this much per day, and it's like that's how we find the answer to this stuff is by math. So yeah, man, I'm down to help you with that and help in any way I can. When I think what's also really cool, man, is like just because I do know you well now, is I'm really starting to see the power of like who you hang out with. And for example, I went to Park City. You weren't there, but a few of our friends were. Went to Park City and I rented a house and I had a few friends come to a mastermind. And being there made me realize that my fitness was off. And what's interesting is we didn't even have a gym that we could go to at this house, and there wasn't even one nearby in the city. And but I could just tell by my friends and what they picked up for a snack, and what they picked up for like a drink. And just being there with them for 3 days, I was like, whoa, like, and they're probably like on there, like, we're all on vacation. We're probably all like doing some version of a cheat for our 3 days. But I was like, their version of a cheat and my version of a cheat were completely different. And it made me realize quickly that like in the real estate space, I'm always usually pretty super confident. But then like when it comes over into the health space, I'm actually not. And so just being around those few people, even though it was for a real estate conference or a mastermind, I was like, oh man. And then, obviously over the last few days, we've been in a lot of text messages back and forth for like fitness. And I was like, this is super cool to see, like, in our group text, nothing wrong with this, no judgment, but like, we're not doing like, we're not talking about like our fantasy sports that we're doing, or, the draft, or who got drafted, or when's football starting. Like I said, nothing wrong with that. Not even saying that there's not a version of text that I'm in or that you're in that aren't like that. I'm just saying that if you do have that, it's nice to know that in the day there's still something of like substance of like, we are all trying to get better and we're all friends and we all joke in that group text, but there's a pretty good, healthy dynamic of friendship, support, um, accountability. People will call you out. I remember yesterday in the group text that we had, I was talking about not being able to like do the proper grocery shopping. And dude, like Taylor in that text was like, hey, give me your guys' email addresses. I'm going to give you a grocery shopping list. And he did within like 5 minutes. He had our grocery shopping list to us. And then I'm looking at my wife on the couch and I'm like now we're at it's 1 hour later and I'm at the grocery store. And I'm just like, that's what's so cool about it. It's like you realize quickly that like who you surround yourself, whether it's real estate or finances, or whether, you need to be around just like good men friends. Like it's really cool to see like you almost are what you hang out with. So like make sure that you pick the right crew to hang out with and you're just not waking up at 62 and you're like, well, I won the fantasy football league this year. And it's like, maybe that's cool or that's your hobby, but I'm like, I don't know if you're retiring off that winning.
And that's the probably highlight of all of this, right? It's like you have no idea how much your circle of friends or who you hang out with influences your life, right? And to go back to what you were saying about the math is the easy part, right? It's easy to sit down and say, hey, if I want to make $1 million, I got to wake up at 4 a.m. and work for 16 hours a day. The hard part is doing it, right? And going back to fitness, you know what you need to do and what not to eat or what you need to eat. The hard part is not having those late night sweets or whatever. But that's what I love about our group and that I'm so thankful for is like not only do we hold each other accountable and push each other, but like just seeing you an hour after we had that text chat, you're at the grocery store and you send us a picture of like turkey and fruits and veggies. I'm like, Chris wastes no time, right? And you make me feel bad about sitting on the couch not doing it. I got up and went to the store too, right? So it's like we have this accountability and this group chat. To your point, it's not anything groundbreaking, but just putting yourself in the room with certain people or having a certain circle of friends will so dramatically influence your behaviors in your life. It's wild to think about and it's so easily overlooked that if everybody could just surround themselves with hungry, motivated, driven people, you'll become that.
Yeah, man, that's super cool. Yeah, it's been fun over the last few months because, like I said, like waking up. Yes, I woke up late yesterday and I just saw our group text and it was already like 60 texts deep. I looked over at my wife and I was like, "Oh man, like I already know where this is going.
Yeah.
If I don't commit to this, they're gonna sign me up for fat camp." So, so
For
I
the
was
record, we all are starting 75 hard today as a result of that group chat, right? One person was like, "Hey, I had my partying done. I'm buckling down and I'm starting 75 hard." And then I was like, "Hey, I've been thinking about doing that." Right? Because I wake up, I go to the gym, but then I eat like crap. And
me
I
too.
just want that extra layer of accountability, right? The math, I knew what not to eat, but I'm constantly eating it.
Yeah.
So just having this accountability group to push me is going to be the reason why I have a six pack in a few months, you know?
There you go, man. Yeah, so I went to a mastermind last week, a 2 day mastermind, and they brought in the speaker. Can't remember the exact name. I texted you over that book, but it was something on like discomfort or something like that. The author is Michael Easter. So if anybody Googles Michael Easter, something on discomfort, but he talks about how there's like studies that say that the people who have the most trauma in their life and the people who have no problems in their life almost have the same like wavelength of like issues. And it was really fascinating. I'm probably butchering this a lot, but like read the book. But like he was speaking for about an hour and a half. He spoke about his book and he spoke about the journey he went on to be uncomfortable. And so he was talking about how like the people who have really, really bad trauma in their life and the people who have no problems in their life, they're almost in the same wavelength. So it's like you've got to almost like forcefully put yourself into uncomfortable situations when really around you is not challenging. And the things that, and I say like I don't have problems and I do, but really if you dig down deep, like if I wrote a list right now of like challenges that I'm having, a lot of people would be like, no way, like that's really silly, right? Like those aren't like, so you know what I mean? Like I'm not like I do struggle and I have problems, but like when I write them down, if I gave them to somebody, they'd be like, are these really like, are these inconvenience you're having in your business right now? Or are these like really, really problems? And so he talks about going on is it a Masogi? Misogy. He talks about going on a Masogi, and I guess we'd have to read the book. I actually haven't read the book, but he, like I said, talked about it for a while, and I'm actually listening to him on Joe Rogan right now because he was on there like a year and a half ago. And he just talks about like you need to go on these periods in your life where you put yourself through uncomfortable things because you just find out who you are. Well, when I left that conference, I was thinking, I was like, what's my Masogi? Like, what's something that I could do? And I pray. Like, I pray and I was like, God, like, what's my Masogi? Like, what could I do that would be challenging? And I've actually had the 75 hard book and I've wanted to do that for a long time. And I actually listen to the author of that book's podcast often. And I'm always in my car, dude. And tell me if you go through this. I'm always in my car listening to this stuff. And I'm like, I want to do that. Like, I want to do that. I wish I
Yeah.
could do that. I know what the results would be in 75 days if I did it. I can visualize it. But then you're right. It's like you want to do it, but then you just, you know, that night comes up and you're like, oh, I didn't do it. And then 3 days later, I'll be like, oh, I want to do that. And then just go to bed. And the next morning, I'm just like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then it could just, that can go on, dude, for like a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And so like when Nolan actually texted us in the morning, I was just like, uncomfortably just knowing in my head as I sent like 7 texts trying to get out of it and no one would allow me to. I mean, I was reading through my text and I was like, oh man, like I got to the point where I in that group text I said, this is probably what it feels like when in reverse when I'm texting you guys and I'm just like, hey, like why didn't you like in real estate, like why didn't you get this marketing done? Why didn't you get this? It's so it's like clockwork now, 17 years in the business, where they're really like confident on their health. And so I felt like it was reversed, like all my excuses, it was giving me like articles, this is what you've got to do. And then it's really interesting to see how I was like praying, like, where do I find my Masogi? And then I get that text in the morning. I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus. Like, this is it. And nothing's more interesting than being thankful for, like, being thankful for an opportunity that you actually are like, I don't really want to do this, but I feel that it's necessary just because it's a place where I think putting yourself through that uncomfortable challenge is proper at certain points. So I want to hear your opinions on that.
No, I totally agree. I mean, better late than never, right? I feel like we're late to the 75 hard party. Like everyone's done it a couple times by now. No one's
Very
posted
few
about it
people have did it, man. Give yourself credit.
Yeah, but like I've been wanting to do this for a long time, to your point, and I knew what it would take to do it, and frankly, I wasn't willing to do that, right? And now it's like I have this new motivation because you're all doing it with me, and we're all holding each other accountable. So I'm really excited about it. I feel like I'm going to break new barriers in my fitness journey because it's been a couple years, and I feel like it's going to be good for all of us. But to your point, it's beyond fitness and how you look. It's about feeling good and being confident and having this thing in your head that you can really do anything you put your mind to, right? And I've been through a couple challenging things in my life. Two things that made me really uncomfortable were one, hanging out with the wrong crowd when I was early on and getting myself into trouble. I learned a lot about myself through that experience. And then overcoming obesity. I wasn't quote unquote morbidly obese, but I was pushing almost 250, 260 pounds back in 2018. And now I'm like 200, so just pushing myself to do those uncomfortable things. I have learned so much about myself, and it's such a part of who I am today. I'm excited to see what kind of takeaways we have from 75 Hard.
Yeah, I am too, man. Day one's today. So I woke up. The person who put that program together said, take care of your feet and start drinking your gallon of water early in the morning. Those were his two pieces of advice. So I'm like, if someone's gonna give me a trick tip, so it was like 7 a.m. and I've already downed a half a gallon. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm taking this serious. Put lotion on my feet already as if they're gonna be so. I'm like already visualizing. I'm like, in 28 days, I'm probably gonna have sore feet. Like I'm gonna take care of these things like they already hurt. So, well, man. So let's go back to some real estate real quick. So, what are you looking most forward to over the next like 6 months?
I set a pretty lofty goal for myself recently after learning about a little bit more about what our brokerage offers. So I'm about to cap after my next transaction. And really, the next kind of big benchmark, specifically with EXP, is the Icon Award. And I know it's a really lofty goal, and probably most people don't hit it in their first year, but I have my eyes set on hitting Icon. I believe the requirements are 20 transactions after you cap.
Yep.
So that's kind of my big lofty goal. And to go back to your question earlier, the game plan to get there is I'm going to start my own PPC soon. So on top of what I'm doing with my own networking, utilizing my own sphere of influence, I'm going to add this other layer on it. And I'm just going to work my butt off as hard as I can. And that's my goal, is to hit Icon in my first year.
That's cool, man. You can totally do it. And PPC, for anybody listening that doesn't know, that means pay per clicks, like internet leads. Yeah, Avo, it's a really good way to always stay true to who you are. And I know you're a referral guy. Like I was too. I can see it in you. It just naturally, you just get referrals, got good charisma. You know how to talk to people. You know not to be salesy when not to be salesy, right? Like it's just in some people, it's not in others. You've got it. Hold true to that as your like foundation. But man, if you can get leads through your door daily, if you can get some leads through your door daily, it's almost to me like I consider it like a virtual open house. Meaning like we've got to go like set up signs, find somebody's listing, spend 3 hours on a Saturday to go maybe have 2, 3 people come to the door and one maybe possibly who wants to buy a home. It's like reverse me. It's like if you can get 2 or 3 people a day inquiring on your website and giving you their information, doesn't mean it's gonna take probably 100 to close a deal. But it's just like a different sport when you feel more on offense, less on defense. And it's like, okay, if I can get 2 or 3 of these a day, then I feel like I have some like, new life coming into my business every day that I can follow up with. And you feel less like you've got to wait for the open house. Now, I would say massive action, and it would be get the referrals, sit the open house, and get the leads coming through every day. That would be my MO. And that's where, dude, I'm telling you to get to that icon spot. I want you to hold true to like massive action and then start thinking now of compounding time. And I go through this at different stages of my career, but compounding time, meaning, and you just know this, look around and you'll clearly be able to see it. But you'll notice some agents where you look at them and you're like, man, that's what you did all week, and you're like, I'm doing that in a day, and then I want you to start looking at your day and be like, that's what I do in a day. Like I can start getting that done before noon. And
Yeah.
it's this compounding of time. That's really all that's happening because as we see realtors that are closing 300 transactions a year, and you see some realtors close 1 transaction a year, nothing's wrong with it. It's just whatever your goals are. But why are some closing 300 and some are closing 1? And I'd have to say it's just action. They've all like the realtor that's closing 16 deals a year can close 97. It's the same things he's doing. Like if he's getting business 3 different ways, it's how do you get more leads that way? And the answer is going to be, well, oh, well, I've got all these people I got to show homes to, so I can't do those activities that lead to get those leads. It's like, okay, well, now we might need to talk about how do we hire somebody to do those activities on the back end so that you can stay focused. Meaning like it's all a numbers game. So when people are doing their math and like, I need to close it. If this is what I'm doing and this is the result what I'm getting, then it's just not saying that doesn't work. It's just how do you do that more often so that you can get more of these closings, and then how do you do that within a year where you still have an enjoyable life? So I'm gonna say like you really you said at the beginning massive action and getting opportunities way, and the next I'm gonna say like focus on that compounding time, and compounding time goes back to that like buy back your time book. I know at that last mastermind you and I were at, that was a big topic of conversation, was buy back your time. Not saying that you need to do it now, but just the whole philosophy of already starting to think about it is really cool. When you don't have people around you helping you, but you're already thinking about where people could help you, that's the first start. Because people ask me often, like, well, what do I do if I can't hire somebody? And I'm like, well, by golly, when you're thinking about your day, start thinking about what would someone do, because if you think about that long enough and hang around with people who do that, you'll start getting it, because you'll start writing down like, I don't want to do this, don't want to do this, and it'll come. So yeah, do compound time. That's cool to hear. Your goal is to be icon agent in Arizona. That's probably 27, 28 deals a year, I think.
Yeah.
What my guess is.
Yeah, and that's great advice. Kind of going back to our group chat and how we push each other and hold each other accountable. I remember like a week or two ago, I posted in there. I was like, guys, I had an awesome day today. I took a buyer out on showings. I showed X amount of homes. I wrote an offer. I made 60 calls. I did this and that and this and that. And you're like, sick, do it again tomorrow. And I'm like, man, that was cold, but I needed that,
Did I say
Like,
that?
yeah, you did. I have the
Oh man.
receipt.
That so sounds like me. My wife has actually told me several times, she's like, man, you gotta lean in a little bit more and like celebrate with people. I don't have it in me, dude. But you know
But
what's
that's
funny? I was
you're
like,
where you are.
yeah, I'm like, that's awesome, bro. Like, let's go. Let's do that again tomorrow. I think because what I think of is, and I'm talking to myself, is when I have like good momentum. One of my mentors told me this a while ago, like, hey, when you have good momentum, the best thing you can do is not celebrate and keep going.
Yeah.
And that's really like that stuck to me, because I went through periods of my career where like I would like get some really good results, and then it was almost like the celebration party. It was like for 4 days, I'm like, yeah. And I mean, I still struggle with this now. And it's like, you're just riding a high for 4 days. And my mentor would be like, hey, like when you've got Like it's so much easier to make your calls, sit in an open house, and call internet leads when you just like had a really good day the day before. So he's like, you just keep going because it's so much easier to do those difficult activities when it all felt good yesterday. When you take off for 4 and 5 days and you don't have like really the success anymore because it's distant, it starts now you start doubt starts creeping in again. You're like, whoa, is it going to work today? But like if you just keep waking up, almost like a confidence thing where, hey, I just did this. You're looking at yourself in the mirror, like I just pulled this off. And then it's like it's so much easier the next day to pull that off again, riding that wave of confidence because give that 4 days and man, we'll let self-doubt and insecurities creep in quick.
Yeah.
Man, I
Yeah.
just said that outright to you, didn't I?
For sure.
Okay.
But that's what you need, you know.
Yeah.
I'm driven and hungry, but I need that sometimes. I need that kick in the butt to be like, hey, here's your pat on the back, keep at it. Because, you know, I definitely got into a little stint a couple weeks ago where I got a little comfortable and took my foot off the gas. I had a couple deals pending. I was like, I'm having a great month. And I just kind of slowed down a little bit, but then I kicked it back into gear. But it's harder to get going again than it is to just keep going, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool, man. Avo, hey, it's been really, really fun chatting with you, man. Your story is super cool. You're gonna do some really cool things in real estate. I tell my wife often, I'm like, there's a few people out there that I know. I mean, I mean, what, 8, 9 years younger than me, and I'm just like, man, these people are coming. You know what I mean? Like you can, like,
Yeah.
as I'm almost 40 now, I'm like, these are the people that are coming for you. You know, because
Yeah.
I remember being 25, 26, 27 in real estate. Finally, about I was starting to gain my ground, right? I'd been doing it enough where I'm like, okay, I feel like I got this. And then, man, now I'm looking at some people and I'm like, these are the people that are just going to try to take your business. You know, you can step off the gas. They're hungry. They've got the gas down. And so it's cool to see, man. I'm super proud of you. Let's schedule a time where we can talk more about how to break down that map. That'll be very fun to do. Um, but man, how can anybody get a hold of you if they're listening to the show, want to reach out? What's your info?
Yeah. Social media at Avo Sells AZ. You could email me, avo at Avo Sells AZ. My website, avosellsaz.com. Get in touch.
That's
Happy to
cool, man.
connect with anybody and appreciate you having me on and just everything you do for us too, man. You're a big part of my success and my mindset and pushing me every day. So thank you. And I'm excited to keep it going.
You're welcome, man. Keep crushing it, bro.
Yeah. Drink your water today too. Don't forget.
I got another half a gallon, man. Later, bro.
See ya.
Bye.